Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in on an important topic when it comes to really understanding and healing through a relationship with a narcissist, and that is to understand the degree to which they are emotionally off limits. Emotionally off limits. You cannot relate to them, have an exchange, a relationship, a future, growth, make tracks, go places, head for the mountains, head for the hills, head for the stars with a narcissist because of the mask that they have on. And to the degree that protects them emotionally. It protects their sensitive areas. It protects their sensitive past. Have you ever found with a narcissist that you really don't oftentimes hear too much of the real, you might only hear the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the past with the narcissist. You only hear the bit that they want you to see. There was always the big topic in courses and study at university with psychology, and it's the tip of the iceberg concept, meaning that your consciousness is the tip, okay, of the iceberg, which means it's a big, vast structure that goes very deep, very broad, and all you really experience is the tip. So it's to understand that when you're dealing in a relationship with a narcissist, you're only dealing with the tip of the iceberg. You're not dealing with the depth. You're not dealing oftentimes with the raw or what you might consider the core. You know, the core of a person, the core of the nucleus, the core of energy, the core of being, core, of the engine. You've heard that word used in a contemporary basis. Work on your core, do your planks, do your stomach curls, hold your core presence, your core purpose, meaning the center. So it's my feeling that a narcissist, they're hiding the role of that mask is to hide their core center. So you're not interfacing with that energetically on the day-to-day. And so they bottle this up. It's sort of their secret, glass bottle, if you will. And and they have the right to a private self. Of course, that's part of the psychological structure is the private and public self. Um, and and so it's to understand that private self oftentimes, which you need to have opened up and related to, and what you might call it a heart to heart, you might call it a gut to gut, you might call it a toe to toe, getting real, coming to Jesus, laying it all out on the table, a kumbaya moment. In other words, what have you been hiding? What have you been running from? What have you been hiding from? Oftentimes, the narcissist is running and hiding from a specific event or a series of events, and then the meaning that they extrapolated or their takeaway from that, and it made them shameful, embarrassed, feel vulnerable, weak, and unable to defend themselves. So a narcissist, at some point, they might have had a traumatizing relationship, or they were overindulged, that they were oftentimes, there's a number of different factors. It's not well understood, but you have to realize that they are emotionally off limits. And so this aspect will be sort of part of the element that haunts you in relationships, is that they are, if you think of like an energy bolt, if you think like a lightning bolt that will travel a path, you will have to understand that with a narcissist, they will block the path when it comes to an energetic exchange, an emotional exchange, a heart-to-heart coming real, talking about what's real to you, talking about your fears, talking about uncertainty, talking about your less than perfect self, or what's going on. You're in other words, you're a confidant to someone that you can confide in, trust in, let it all hang out with, be safe with. Oftentimes this is not a energetic experience that you can truly have, but however is needed in life. And I think the Indian people and many other spiritual traditions and cultures have their own unique word for it. So if you guys have come from different cultures, please use your word for that and sort of explain it. I know that there was an Indian word for friendship. You might call it fellowship, which is like being able to come together, to feel a communion with, to feel a belonging, to feel a bird of a feather we flock together, sort of connection. And that connection is safe, strong, meaningful, and where you belong, and then you can kind of see where you belong. But sometimes that experience has been plagued or inhibited or hindered because of a relationship with a narcissist, because they don't want you to feel that degree of connection. They want to be sort of the ones who can control the information. They want to be sort of, control the flow of information. So almost like a beaver dam, they can direct it or misdirect it or redirect according to what sets their reflection of their positive persona, if you will. So oftentimes this will create a sort of damming up or blockage where they're emotionally off limits, where you can't reach them. They're untouchable. You can't truly connect with them. They will put on a facade. They're put on a mask, and once again, they have the right. This is their nature. If they don't want to share something with you, they will not share something with you. And it doesn't mean that they're going to share it with others or what have you. It's just how it is. But oftentimes, this experience is very limiting and damaging, and can create scars for a lot of people because of the narcissist projection. That, in other words, they are emotionally unavailable or emotionally off limits because you don't have what it takes to meet them where they are emotionally on limits. So they tend to project the blame of this attachment disorder that someone else is responsible, i.e., their target, their scapegoat, is responsible for their dissatisfaction or a deficit in the relationship. So there then becomes especially the shaming of other people. And shaming is a very potent, lethal, toxic, sort of emotional, harsh projection. Harsh meaning very abrasive, very gets under the skin, creates a lot of messiness, a lot of blurred edges, a lot of sharp edges. It creates a tendency to get snagged on this sort of gray and nebulous, in sort of very difficult to detect and visualize and understand and process area. So it's kind of like if you've ever seen maybe like a fence or something that was made out of metal or something that was very sharp and cragged, and it's just you get sort of dragged across those thorns or those steel prickers, if you will. There's a very sort of cold and metal like aspect to a narcissist, which you can get sort of cut from. You can get energetically cut, wounded, hurt, maimed, feel altered, be in a pain-ridden state. And it feels very, I would say it can be from a sharp or pointed sardonic humor. Sardonic can be a very sort of dark sarcasm that they use to sort of deflect their entitlement. I mean, this is a pathology. It puts them in a very small percentage of personality types that you might still be trying to emotionally connect to, but yet they're emotionally off limits. And so when you go through that process of trying to remain emotionally connected, you end up just hurting yourself. I mean, the effort gets sort of truncated and then turned around and then flipped back on you, right, left, upside down, and sideways. It can be very all-encompassing and hurtful emotionally, your energy in motion. It's important to understand the emotional the aspect or prospect of yourself that is emotional. And so whether it's a female or a male or on a spectrum, I mean, this whole thing, gender is a spectrum. I mean, it's just where things are at right about now. And it's always been up for discussion and evolving and development. So where we find ourselves now in this discussion is, gender is a spectrum and emotions are a spectrum. Everything is sort of a spectrum, if you will, or just sort of a prismatic manifestation of the source, as it's sort of filtered through these components of human consciousness, human will, all these different variations. I mean, it's just, there must be a whole gazillion of really true, if you could map it out, emotional states within individuals. I mean, it just is very rich and diverse. But the thing is, it is unique and personal to the individual. Personal meaning personal for you. And so you cannot oftentimes feel a closeness. Even though you desire, you will not be able to feel a certain closeness with this individual, if ever. So a lot of people just think that, we'll get closer with time. This will change with time. After they graduate, after they get this job, after they complete this project, after they have this, there's always usually some sort of milestone that they're sort of pounding into the ground and saying, well, after this is done, I'm staking it that after this, and so it will it will be sort of a perpetual haunting. And it's my viewpoint also that this sort of creates that perpetual sort of endless loop, which is an unsolved problem. It's an unsolved question. It doesn't have an answer as of yet. And it's because they're emotionally unavailable. You cannot get the response, the feedback that you're looking for. It is limited. There is a restriction. And hope that this discussion will help you to understand a little bit more of this. And your experience thereof, and why it is so daunting and why it's so haunting, is because it can't be solved within the relationship. It has to be solved within you and your comprehension and understanding of these types of people, not only the ones that you've met in the past, but the ones in your present, and then the ones that you're going to meet in the future, and just their personality construct, the architect of their personality, what it is, and then how you enter into that it energetically, like a foyer to a building. How close are you going to get? How are you going to identify it? And then can you then identify how many floors it has? Do you understand? I mean, it's just sort of a term of emotional architecture. And then emotional architecture. So you have to understand what your emotions are, men and female, men and women, girl or boy, what emotions are for you at your time of life and in your stage of personal and human development, because emotions will change as you get older through the decades, through time, through culture, through your own community experience. But you do need to understand your emotional needs, which are different from your physical needs and wants, your emotional wants and your emotional needs, and how often, needs, i.e., which are like a parallel to your physical needs. In other words, your need for water, your need for thirst. I mean, these are needs. You have to understand. And then oftentimes a narcissist cannot satisfy these needs. So it's like trying to eat, 9 tablespoons of white sugar and wondering why you don't feel strong. It's because it is not nutrient dense. It gives you a different sort of spurt of energy, and it oftentimes leaves you with a crash fatigue or tiredness. It doesn't give nutrients to the body like amino acids, like aminopeptides, like minerals, like vitamins. So you have to understand that people and relationships with them are very similar in terms of the emotional nutritiveness of it. If you can sort of begin to evaluate and understand and process relationships in this way, and how there is sort of a feeling that does not lead to your emotional well-being or really anyone's emotional well-being. You can understand it's like eating or consuming a food that does not make you feel well. It makes you feel sick, And there was like that comedian Jim Gaffigan that talks about eating Hot Pockets, and he, and it's just so junk food, but he eats it and he feels sick, but he keeps doing it anyway. I mean, it's just, that can be, part of people. It can create an obsessive disorder for other people where they continue to obsess about this person and they do things that are contradictory to what is in their own best interest, and then they're aware this is not good for me, but they proceed anyway. It creates just sort of a reaction of obsession and compulsion, where compulsion means you feel compelled, you have a compulsion to do something, you lose control. I mean, that needs to be treated. That needs to be medically treated if you're experiencing obsessive and compulsiveness, obsessive compulsive. And so you should be able to live in a better place with this other than just emotionally unavailable relationships. It won't flourish, and it won't oftentimes have the fruits, if you will, that you're looking for. The blooming, the growth, the experience, the trustworthy. You don't really feel you have a relationship with them. It feels very precarious, dangerous, unattainable, and illusory. And if it feels that way, most often you have to understand there's an emotional deficit that it's for your understanding, and that it cannot oftentimes be shared, if that makes any sense. It's your buddy, and then to what degree, you need to find someone then who is emotionally on limits for you, who is emotionally available, who is available to go and connect with, where there are some a positive relationship space, like a happy zone you can have and share a happy place with. This should be your primary focus, or at least one of your focuses, so that you can indulge that and begin to reduce the fear and develop your endurance then. Because for a lot of people, even the normal becomes uncomfortable. So you have to really adjust to what is going to be a new normal in relationships, especially those who have some degree that you are comfortable with of emotional availability and emotionally on limits for you. This is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. I hope the videos do help. Please share, please subscribe, and please donate for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Peace be with you, and have a beautiful day.